Call the meeting to order. I want to thank everyone who came out tonight, especially given the weather situation we just had. In attendance, we have for directors Renee, Shari, Nancy, Lynn, Janet, Ginny, Andy. Alan, are you in?
And Alan.
And Alan, good.
I'm here.
Alan is on the phone. Oh, Alan, don't forget, if you're not talking, could you mute the phone so we don't get feedback?
Not a problem.
Thank you. For staff, we have Susan. Milton is in a training session this week, so he's out of town. Remind everyone, this is our meeting, so it is being recorded, streamed live to the internet if anyone would like to follow. Remind you of the 5 civility principles. Speak kindly, don't speak ill. Accept and give constructive criticism. Apologize earnestly. Respect others' opinions. Respect other people's time. And outside of Alan, anyone else on the phone? No, just Alan. Thank you. I have no announcement of closed special meetings to be held. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? I would like to make that one change, which I sent out, that we add the risk management changes to kind of bring the committee into.
It's fine.
So if there's no problem, we'll add that to the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Nancy moved. Is there a second? Lynn seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. No conflicts of interest have been reported to me. Now we'd like to move to the recognition of the recipients of the Maggie J. Brown Spirit of Columbia Scholarship Awards, and I got to admit this is always one of the nice things about being chair that I kind of get up and congratulate people. So I'd like to ask Michelle Miller to kind of join me. So first up, I'd like to call Yamini Anna. Please come up. So Yamini is a graduating senior from Atherton High School. Resides in the village of River Hill. For the past 3 years, she served on the River Hill Teen Advisory Committee in the capacity as the chair and the student member on the board. She helped organize over 30 events in River Hill, such as the River Hill 4th of July Parade, Breakfast with Santa, and Halloween nights. After noticing a gap among student services at her school, she and 4 other students began a club called Feed the Future, which would focus exclusively on addressing hunger in the community. The volunteers served over 700 hours in these past 2 years, including volunteering many times for the Howard County Food Bank and Community Garden. In addition, she has achieved her Girl Scout Gold Award, which is the highest award a girl can attain in the Girl Scouts. She will attend Columbia University in the fall, and we really would like to congratulate you. We're going to tag team this. So.
Okay.
So you're going to be tired here in the middle.
Okay. Next up is Nia Anderson. Okay, we'll skip Nia. We'll move on to Kate Mackin. Kate is a graduating senior from Atherton High School, and she resides in the village of Hickory Ridge. It was because of an interest in the education field that Kate began volunteering at Clemens Crossing Elementary School for 3 years. She assisted students with writing assignments, reading to them, editing their written work, and aiding the teachers with whatever assistance they needed. Her love of working with younger children didn't stop there, as she and a friend planned and hosted a elementary school camp for girls in her neighborhood for 5 summers. And I work with camps, and I know how tiring that is. Many hours were spent making and distributing flyers, planning, setting up, running the camp, and cleaning up. They took into consideration the different personalities of each girl and planned activities that would be enjoyable for all. In addition, Kate has made dance boards for 115 dancers, wow, in her Atholton High School dance program, incorporating positive words and statements for every dancer from their own classmates. And Kate will attend Towson University in the fall.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Is Kevin here?
Kevin, too. He's a graduating senior from Atholton High School also. I noticed he was pretty happy about Atholton. He resides also in the village of River Hill. After learning that because of the high cost of living in Howard County, many families did not eat full meals and children went to bed hungry, he and a few friends started a new service club at Atholton called Feed the Future. Through this club, they have organized food drives, bake sales, made meals for chronically ill people in the Baltimore, and through the movable feast, and cooked meals for families staying at the Ronald McDonald House while their children receive treatment at the hospital. One of Kevin's dreams is to become a physician in Doctors Without Borders, and since 2017, he has served as an intern in the Johns Hopkins Alzheimer Research Center. He has been inspired to make an impact on individuals who suffer from neurological disorders. He is a member of the Clippers swim team, and in the summer of 2016 and 2017, he voluntarily offered classes to younger kids and their parents on how to swim and improve the swim techniques. Kevin will be attending the University of Maryland in the fall.
Morgan Young. Come on up, Morgan. Morgan is also graduating from Appleton, and she resides in Wild Lake. For the past 4 years, she has been involved with the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, otherwise known as JROTC program at Appleton, and currently serves as the battalion commander, the top-ranking cadet, and is responsible for the training and welfare of 232 cadets. Morgan has logged over 150 hours of service on the JROTC, supported projects and activities. She's an active member of the Delta Scholars and has devoted her time to community's homework club, helping younger kids with homework. Having family members with various cancers, Morgan wanted to raise awareness for these diseases and has committed time to the Breast and Prostate Cancer Awareness Campaign, raising funds for patients at the Bethesda Walter Reed Cancer Center. Additional projects include assisting with the elderly at Harmony Hall Senior Living Facility and creating blessing bags for the homeless. Morgan will attend Mount St. Mary's University in the fall.
And next we have Nia Anderson. So she's a graduating senior from Hammond High School and resides in the village of Owen Brown, which I can say, yay, because I'm the rep from Owen Brown. And wanting to learn more about domestic violence and teen relationships, Nina interviewed for and accepted into the 2016 Youth Leadership Program at HopeWorks of Howard County. HopeWorks is the county's rape crisis and domestic violence center, and youth leaders are trained to be ambassadors for healthy relationships in their communities. Through this program, Nia helped facilitate workshops for peers and represented HopeWorks at community awareness events. She has also been involved with the Howard County chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Ascend program, which provides outreach services to the community. She has assisted with the annual coat and food drives, as well as mentoring students at Cradle Rock Elementary. In addition, this past year, Nia has been volunteering monthly at the Howard County Food Bank, where she assists families as they choose food items and keeps the marketplace organized and neat. Nia will attend Spelman College in the fall. And then also, we had one person who had a conflict tonight because he's doing a recital. But Caleb Park is a graduating senior from Longreach High School and resides in the village of Longreach. In an effort to share his love of classical music, Caleb has volunteered his time for the past 2 years working with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students who play cello at Jeffers Hill Elementary and Deep Run Elementary. Some of the activities Caleb has assisted with were tuning 70-string instruments for a beginning concert, helping students with beginner cello techniques, and giving private lessons after school. Since 2016, he has been volunteering at Brighton Gardens, a senior living facility in Columbia. He has volunteered in the activities department, helping with events such as calling bingo, conducting trivia, and serving refreshments at the daily socials. In addition, he has organized several music concerts for the residents' enjoyment. He will attend Emory University in the fall. So we want to thank him.
Thank you all very much.
So I just wanted to say, in case you hadn't noticed, these scholarships are really based on community service, because that's part of our mission is to help the community. And we had some very excellent candidates tonight, and it's just amazing what some of our young people do. And I want to encourage everyone to please keep up the work and give back to your community, because it's very, very important. But thank you very much for coming out tonight. Of course, you're all welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you have other things to do, we understand.
Is there a list of those?
But thank you very much.
Is there a list of those names that I can have for my notes? You can ask.
Oh, those names. The names of the people that got the awards. And Michelle has them.
Michelle has them. I need this back, though.
I'll give it back.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Has my cheat sheet. Okay, we will move on to resident speak out.
A report I put we voted.
Add that in favor. Yes.
First up, we have Leah Malin. Welcome, Leah. Please come up, and if you would please, sit it and speak into the mic, because it makes it easier when we're recording, and also for people in the audience and the board to hear.
Okay. Thank you. My name's Leela Malin, and I'm here to talk to you about a proposed zoning regulation amendment for Howard County, and it's ZRA 187. And it's for some senior residential developments, conditional use, age restricted. There are a lot of sort of limiters on this, where density can be allowed of up to 2.5 times what is regularly scheduled based on the zoning. When conditional use age restricted was first developed, it made sense given the estimates at that time for the size of the homes and the lifestyle of the population. These have changed over the past 2 decades. The size of the home was estimated about 2 decades ago to be about 700 to 800 square feet for these communities, and they're now, the most recent average was 2,200 square feet. So it's almost quadrupled to some of them. And then The other is the lifestyle of the population. It was assumed that someone who was over 55 or 65 wasn't traveling that much or doing that much, and recent national studies have shown that the per person trips has far more than doubled over the past 20 years. So we think that this amendment would accomplish 4 things for the county. It would better serve the needs of many seniors. It would require that developers who are requesting higher density, you can still have age restricted, you can still have traditional density, but if you're requesting higher density for age restricted over 55, that those communities need to be located on a non-local road. It can't be in an interior community. And we believe this would reduce fuel consumption and air pollution. We think that this would separate the higher density development from more sensitive environmental areas, which are going to be more likely to occur in interior communities. This was initiated in April after months of research on a type of conditional use that allows for this to be placed higher density in certain parcels. There are also very few amenities that are required in these particular types of developments. We can, as we age in place, if that's what we choose to do, we have the same amenities available to us at the same restrictions. So the ZRA will not affect the ability to build age-restricted over 55 adult housing. It won't impact other conditional uses, and it won't impact residential or non-residential districts that are in floating districts. So we'd like for you to support this without any changes or amendments. I have some handouts here, if I may.
If you just give them to Valerie, she can pass. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I do have one. This is Alan.
So you
I just want to.
You want these developments, if they're going to increase density, to be off of a main road? I'm not.
There are types of roads. They're called, and we have links. They're called collector roads or arterial roads, and they would be on something that you would consider to be a more major road. It would be on. I could give you examples of roads like that, but it wouldn't be offshoots inside communities. More transportation, that sort of thing available.
Thank you, Leah. Yes, Ginny.
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, and then Alan's in the queue, too.
Alan was actually ahead of me.
Alan? Alan?
Yeah, just a quick question. I just want to make sure I'm hearing right, because this was one of the questions I had. This is a ZRA that doesn't just apply to one property. This is to apply to all future age-restricted housing?
Yes, if it is located on a local road, if it doesn't have access
Great.
to transportation services, that sort of thing. And this isn't for like an Erickson type community. This is age restricted.
Okay, thank you.
Ginny?
Yeah, you may have said this, but the planning board approved this unanimously.
I didn't say that. The planning board approved this unanimously.
Okay.
The also DPZ unanimously approved in the technical staff report. They supported what we said.
Okay, then, and the last thing is, this will be heard by the county council next.
Yes, it's been before the planning board. We hope
As-
that it
as
will go
a-
in June. So in
As
the
a
next
zoning
couple of weeks.
regulation amendment
Right.
is, okay, in June.
Yep. So any support, if you all felt compelled to send a letter of support, we would deeply appreciate it. It would help to move this forward. And this is a citizens initiation. It's something we've been working on. We have now a few hundred people that are supporting this, and we're getting more people signing petitions, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ruth Hughes. Welcome, Ruth. I assume you're representing...
Moms Demand Action. That's correct for Gun Sense. And thank you for I'm back here again to, I'm Dr. Ruth Hughes. I'm a volunteer for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense, which is a nonpartisan grassroots organization for gun safety to reduce gun violence in our country. And I'm also a clinical psychologist and a 25-year resident of Long Reach. We want to thank you for considering the proclamation for National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I know you're going to be voting on that in a bit here. We urge you to vote yes. And for our Wear Orange weekend that's coming up, June 7th is the Wear Orange Day, and there'll be events on the 8th here in Columbia. During Wear Orange, everyone who believes we can and must solve the gun violence problem in America will take action and stand together in a bold statement of resilience and fortitude as we advance our efforts to save lives from gun violence. Columbia is not immune. Sadly, a young man, Ronald Carolina Jr., was shot and killed only a few months ago near Harper's Choice Village Center. And we all remember the devastation we felt after the shooting of a popular teacher, Lauren Wallen, from Wild Lake High School, who was murdered by her boyfriend. We're seeing gun violence increase here in Columbia. Nationally, it's impossible. Almost every week, there is another major event. It's the second leading cause of death for youth and teens, and the first leading cause of death for Black teenagers. In an average month, 50 American women are shot by an intimate partner, and many more are injured. Nearly 2/3 of gun violence are suicides. We can make a huge difference in this, and so we really appreciate your consideration of this proclamation. We urge you to vote yes, and we also hope that you will join us on Saturday, June 8th at Harper's Village Center. We're going to be at the Plaza at Joseph Square from 2 to 4, and we hope that the proclamation can be presented at that time. I know several of you have indicated an interest, and we're really delighted. We urge all of you to come, and we urge you to wear orange. I'm sorry, my Wear Orange shirt was still dirty from last week, but my compatriots here have theirs on. So are there any questions you folks have about the event or the proclamation?
Thank you, Ruth. Any questions? Alan, any questions?
Not really a question. If I could just take a moment. Just want people to note the NAACP at this moment is meeting at Harper's Choice Middle School, and high on the agenda is this issue, and the Carolina, his family is there and being supported. So that's, and I just stopped by to say hello to them to give my support.
And some of our members are there tonight, and the NAACP is one of our partners in this event, and so we are working with them on this very important issue.
Sure.
I just wanted to
Thank you.
ask if people are interested, is there some place where they can buy those orange shirts?
Yes, yes. You need to go to Moms Demand Action on the internet and go to the store there, and they have our Wear Orange shirts and our Moms Demand Action shirts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Oh, Ginny?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Will anybody be selling them that day? No, okay.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But that's an excellent question. We should be, shouldn't we?
Yeah, wash yours and sell it.
Yeah. It's not planned yet, but hey, great suggestion. Let's see what we can do.
They're taking theirs off already to get us $10, $15.
All right. Thank you, Ruth.
All right, thank you.
Next up, we have Debbie Latimer. Welcome, Debbie. I kind of assume.
Yes, I just wanted to also voice my support for the proclamation. Thank you so much for issuing a proclamation last year. It meant a lot to our organization. I am a social worker, and I work in public health. I work at the Howard County General Hospital. This issue is near and dear to my heart, and I hope you see fit to sign on to the proclamation again this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Any questions? Next up, we have Charlotte Churchill, and I can see by your orange shirt. Welcome, Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Churchill. I am a 15-year Columbia resident, and I'm the Howard County events lead So I'm planning the event on June 8th. So it would mean a lot to me if you would sign or vote yes for the proclamation. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. And it's a very near and dear to me as my oldest is going to high school next year. It's a big step and just need to end gun violence. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlotte. Any questions?
Thank you.
That's all I have on my list. Okay, we'll move on. Renee, could you pass that down eventually to Valerie? Okay, next up, Chairman's remarks. What I wanted to tell people that I want to thank Janet, who has volunteered to actually be our timekeeper. We're going to try to stay on schedule. And I'm really happy that she volunteered because I can tell you as chair, I can't keep the time. It's just,
We noticed that.
yes, you noticed that. So it's really good to have a volunteer.
We're kidding.
And also, I did submit a written report. And I want to really thank the Art Center, for hosting the Congressional Art Competition. It really, really went well. Any questions? Okay, next up we have President's Report. As I mentioned, Milton is out of town. But Susan is happy to take any questions you have. She'll write them down for Milton. So, sorry.
Yeah, I did have a question. I noticed in our minutes that Milton, and I'm very happy about this, had committed to working on the issue and getting back to us about the East Guilford, the covenant situation. I was just wondering, there wasn't anything in his report, so I was just wondering if you could give us an update.
So I know that the group met, but it wasn't, this went to publication before those notes could be put together, so I can take that up and make sure that they're in the next one, if not before.
Yeah, okay. So when you say the group, you meant the...
As many property owners as were interested met. There was a list the mailing went out to all of them, I think about 80 total. And I guess how many were in attendance?
All the mailings were made to everyone who we were able to identify as a property owner within the Guilford Industrial Park. We didn't do an actual count, but I'm guessing there were maybe 30 property owners in attendance at the meeting. Ginny was there, so she could probably say if that sounds about right, and Andy was there.
Dick was there too.
But I think it was
About
probably
30.
about 30. And there was, shall we say, a lively conversation with respect to whether or not the property owners had an interest in amending the industrial covenants or keeping them just as they are or terminating them, and whether CA would be the appropriate body going forward to enforce those covenants, or whether the enforcement should stay with HRD, or whether the enforcement should go to the property owners themselves. Nothing was decided except that the property owners are going to go off and have their own meeting, and then will come back to us and basically ask us to set up another meeting at which there can be a further discussion, and if they have questions at that time, they can ask us whatever their questions are. So that's where it stands at the moment.
I would say, just my point, the property owners were very happy we had the meeting to kind of at least get them thinking about it. Wait a minute, let me ask Shar, you have anything else?
Oh.
No.
Okay. Ginny.
Yeah, just, this is my impression, okay? One, yeah, I think they were all glad that the meeting was held. I think there's confusion as to what we're talking about with the East Guilford Industrial Park. And Andy, when we met with Milton, asked that he come in and show us a map, because some people think it's more narrow than it really is. So it's important to actually see what the boundaries are that we're talking about, so we know we're all on the same page, so to speak. Mm-hmm. The second thing is there was a disagreement, but there was also confusion about what is covenants, what are covenants, and what is really county's responsibility for other types of enforcement. Like, for example, there was a lot of complaints about trucks on Berger Road. If you ever drive that, it's trucks on both sides, and it's a mess. But they're saying, well, you're going to enforce that. Well, that's not a covenant thing. So there's confusion about what the county should be doing, what CA would be doing if we took over the covenants. And it might be worth having a meeting. We were talking about this where we have a county person there and we have CA. But the other thing I think, and it's my personal opinion, is we're not clear on what we're talking about when we say we're going to enforce the covenants. What covenants? The existing ones, people, not everybody there is really, businesses are really understand what the existing covenants are. Then what have other people been presenting to us in terms of, are they add-ons? Are there some deletions? I think that's really important to understand what exactly are we talking about if we were to decide to, or if they want us to enforce them. There's really is not a level playing field there or an understanding, and that's important. So I think those are really big obstacles that we have to deal with before we move on. You can't really get a good vote when people don't understand the geographic area and what exactly we're talking about.
Sure.
And have any of the business owners, are they aware of the design guidelines for that area that were originally put into place? That document should be at CA somewhere. So do we have access to it? Do they have access to it? Where does it reside? It might be in the archives. I think if you're talking about a level playing field, that would be one of the things that you want to take a look at. First, let's gather all the documents. If we don't even have agreement about the mapping, then we certainly need to have a map, an accurate map, not a schematic, but an actual map of who owns what and where. And then I think we have to take a look at those guidelines as part of this examination.
So I would say just a quick answer to your question. Yes, some of the property owners are very aware of the covenants and the guidelines. And some of them are not aware of the covenants and guidelines.
And some,
Yeah.
one of the lawyers was here representing 5, don't want any covenants and enforcement or
There are-
zoning or anything else. So you get all.
There are various opinions, and
No,
that's
I'm not saying
why
that's
it's
right
very
or
good
wrong.
to
I'm
have
saying
the
they're
property
okay.
owners go off and start
Right,
the
exactly.
discussion.
Yeah.
Lynn?
Well, Sherry
Oh,
had-
sorry.
Sherry
Oh,
had-
sorry.
Just to
Sure.
fill in some more detail, all of the property owners, when we sent out the invitation notices, were provided with a copy of the covenants, which, by the way, for Guilford are called restrictions, but it's the same thing, covenants, restrictions. So they all do have a copy of the restrictions. We did not mail out the guidelines at the same time. That seemed a little bit overkill because we needed to start with a base conversation. But yes, we do also have the design guidelines and can provide those when the time is right. The reason there seems to be some difference of opinion about the property boundaries is because people repeatedly refer to East Guilford, but for purposes of the covenants, there is no such thing as East Guilford. There is just Guilford. And Guilford is a whole lot bigger than just East Guilford, which is why there is a significant difference in the property ownership lists for those two areas. And we are actually in the process right now of essentially looking at the land records property by property to attempt to identify which properties are actually subject to the restrictions and what the acreage on those properties is, because in order to have any kind of a vote on any of this, it needs to be a vote by a majority of the acreage, not a majority of the owners, but a majority of the acreage. So you have to know the acreage of each property in order to figure out what you would need in terms of a vote. So we're working on that piece.
Lynn?
Wow, sounds very interesting. Was there any discussion of the cost of enforcement,
No, none.
of how that would be set up?
That would be kind of like the next set of discussions, kind of.
Consider that here.
Yes.
Any other questions on the president's report?
Yes, I do.
Alan.
I do.
Yes, Alan?
Sherry, or anybody, what's the total acreage of all of that industrial park, and what's the total acreage that we own there?
Total acreage of the entire industrial park, our best guess, as I said right now, because we're still working on an actual final number, but our best guess right now is that it's about 340 acres. And I am frankly not sure what CA's acres ownership is. Dennis, do you have any idea? No. Okay. That's something we still need to determine. It's nowhere near 50%, let's put it that way.
Well, I know that, but the question is, do we have a significant say? And I just have no idea. Do we have 0.5%? Do we have 20%? What is it? And you raised an interesting question, Sherry, and I don't need the whole process if we even know what the process would be. But I infer from what you said that there may be some energy or need or desire to split the industrial park. Is that a process that the owners can do? Is that the process that the county would have to do? What would be who would be the decision maker in that kind of situation?
There was no discussion of that issue, Alan. I'm not.
Well, when you talk about East
at.
Guilford, and that sounded like a little different. That's what prompted that for me.
No.
Okay. Question for Ginny: What were Brian or England or Chris Oliva there, and did they speak?
Yes, they were all there. Oh, wait a minute.
Brian and Chris were both there.
And Jervis.
And Jervis, and they all.
And Jervis was there. Okay.
They were
Thank you.
literally at the table. You were in the audience.
Thank you. I'm done.
Any other questions about the president's report? None. Thank you very much. Move on. We have the report from IAT. It was written. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
I do have a question.
Oh, you do? Oh, sorry. You're
I did my homework. I did my homework this week. The question that I had, the guidelines, that have been set up for the regulations,
right.
For the maintenance. It says these are in the process of being published. When you say published, does that mean?
CA was putting them in the proper format through, I think, marketing to be published. We are going to put them up on our website. They'll be available through CA also.
And will there be time for response to those guidelines?
No.
Is there any?
No.
No feedback?
No feedback.
Okay.
Well, you're welcome to provide feedback.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can just get a change the result.
Yeah, no,
All right,
these
I would just like, we've been talking about this, but it would be, I would just be interested in seeing what those guidelines are. So if there's something available before they actually get put up on the website, and you could send it to board members, that would be helpful.
I will send it as soon as I see them.
Okay, thank you.
Ginny.
Yeah, I just need, maybe not tonight, but at some point understand this, having just one group that applies for grants, usually makes sense. It sounds good. We have a Howard County Arts Council now. They're saying maybe they'll just be a downtown Columbia. But my concern is where the Inner Arbor would fit into this, the trust and their board, and that the board not lose control of things, and where CA in terms of protecting the land and the easement. I would like to see the contract and make sure there's no violation of the contract if these other guys take over. I just have a lot of questions, and I don't expect answers tonight, but
Let me say that I think a lot of this is perhaps aspirational at this point. It would be, obviously ideal if the arts, community could coordinate its calendar and its events through one organization. It was stated in this report that if it were the DAC, which I think was maybe the legislative intention when the DAC was created, who knows. But if it were the DAC, it would have to be a reconstituted DAC. It could not be the DAC board as it exists now. It would have to be a DAC, a very inclusive board that included members of all the arts groups, there would have to be, again, conflict of interest is a certainly concern on composition of boards, things like that. Given the trust, I don't think that this group understood the complexity of what the trust is, that it's not, we don't just program things in the park. We are responsible for maintenance of the park. We are responsible for building out the park. Could the DAC absorb those things? I don't know. In other words, I think there are a lot of things that the group is unaware of. This will take, they thought maybe a 3-year time frame. My guess is that if this goes forward, this will probably take longer. Because again, the CA owns the land. It's part of CA's open space. So I don't know what the implication would be of absorbing that part of the trust, the maintenance of CA land, into another group. I don't know. So there are a lot of things that have to be considered in doing this. This is the same group is going to be meeting, regularly during the year, once every quarter. So we'll see what happens with this. In addition, of course, this would be enormously expensive. It involves CA. I mean, you just don't take all these different groups with their different assets, their different missions, and say, okay, fine, we're all together now. It would be very complex to deal with everybody's bylaws, everybody's missions, everybody's assets, and their debits.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah, I have a real concern with this whole thing that we.
It is not imminent.
Well, even then, I don't want another board getting surprised 3 years from now.
No, this is something that has to be done with CA's total understanding, the trust's total understanding. This would definitely involve board decisions and some
And
where
where
change like
CA's
this.
residence money would go, right now, we know if there's going to be a cut off the top for administrative, you know what I mean. Okay.
Raphael.
I just have a question. Since I was here when the Inner Harbor, this whole thing, so little bit memory of that. Just a question for Susan. Do you have any idea how much funding has been provided since the inception of the Inner Harbor Trust?
No, I'd have to pull that together. I know for FY20, it's about $449,000, but I would have to go back.
So
it's been since FY13.
Right, so it has been at least close to 3 million or more?
No,
No.
nowhere near.
Okay. So it's not annually 450?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, part of that is actually a path.
Okay.
I think the
It's
majority of
something
that
that
is actually a
CA
path.
would have built on its own anyway, the path.
Okay.
Part of, again, CA contributed to the construction of the chrysalis. However, the county contributed far more. I think CA's portion was, what, $1.4 million?
I thought it was $1.5 million
$1.6
or something.
Initial
Right.
Initially it
investment
was
was
big.
$1.6 million.
Right, there you go.
And the county contributed 6.4.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and
So 1.6, and now the second time, and maybe something more.
There have been a couple other smaller.
So it's close to 3.
No.
Pretty
No,
close.
no.
If we are
No,
doing
not at all.
450.
Why don't we let Susan calculate it and we'll get it back to the.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
Yes, this is Alan.
Alan, yes.
I guess I just want to put my voice into this last piece. It's been over 3 million. We initially gave 1.6 million at the very beginning, and there's another 1.6 million for the chrysalis, plus the 400,000, plus a couple hundred other thousand. So it's added up to well over 300,000 during the life of
Susan will get
Inner
the
Harbor.
actual figures for us, broken down by a fiscal
Right.
year.
Now, what I was originally going to say was to Lynn. Lynn, as you know, because of a role in another part of my life, I was also part of those meetings when I could, and I absolutely agree that if this is going to happen, it would require a restructuring both of the DAC board and I would say also of the DAC leadership to make this really work. I would also say that just personally, I'm in support of Inner Arbor continuing with the Chrysalis and having that programming under the, still being run by the Inner Arbor, but being part of the DAC and Arts umbrella, and hopefully then the rest of the land and all that maintenance you were talking about and the building out you were talking about could come back to CA, and we could take that back over. But that again is the future. So my question to you is, I hear that you say it's likely to take a while. I hear you say that there are many questions. I just want to just get a check. Is this something that the Inner Arbor board is at least positive enough about to be willing to pursue it?
Okay, the board has not had a vote on this. This was just presented at the last meeting of the Arts Council mediation group, so it hasn't been presented to the board yet.
Okay, thank you.
It's just based on that last meeting of the Arts Council group.
Nancy?
I just wanted to say that initial 1.6,900,000 of it, I believe, was from the state, so it was on.
We'll let Susan
I just
figure
want
it
to
out.
say that.
No, there was 250,000 that came from the state that was in addition.
Yeah, I think we'll wait till Susan will provide the report. That's fine. I was just guessing. I thought there was annual contribution. That was my mistake.
All right, we're going to move on. Consent agenda, we already approved it.
About the watershed appointment?
Yep, that was all approved. It's under consent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the approval of minutes in watershed. All right, board votes. So we have, hopefully you've all had a chance to read the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, wait a minute. Nancy had her.
Nancy.
Yes, I move that we accept the resolution accepting the proclamation for National Gun Violence Awareness Day.
And Renee seconded. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Alan?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. All right, we're on to draft strategic plan. So I would like to first thank the small working group with staff and board for putting everything together. And Griff, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think two things. I'll cover very briefly for the record how we got there here. Raffia and I had a discussion earlier today that I hope was somewhat explanatory to how we got here. But you remember we started with surveying members and non-members back in January. I've met with about 50 stakeholders. We had phase 1 or phase 2 report and summarized that information. We met twice in March, all day on a Saturday, to basically flesh out and hone down into our goals and our mission and vision. So we met twice in March. We continued with 2 work group meetings in April and 1 earlier this month. So that's how we got here. And Gail's going to tell you a little backdrop before you guys vote on what we hope happens tonight.
Welcome, Gail.
This has been a process, and we really want to acknowledge everything that went into it, and the commitment and the teamwork and the effort that went into getting to the point where we can actually vote on the strategic plan. But we also wanted to remind you that we're not voting necessarily on every word as it is written in the plan. What we're voting on is, in general, can you support the plan? Can you support the goals? If there's something that is near and dear to you that isn't explicitly stated in the goals, do you see space for it to happen anyway? You're going to revisit these annually. They're going to be updated, but we need to get started. And so the idea is it okay? Can you support it? Can we move forward with the plan as it is? So are we going to decide whether or not we're going to vote on the whole plan?
That's Andy's.
So, is there a motion to adopt the proposed 5-year strategic plan as put together by the working group committee?
So moved.
Ginny moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Nancy seconded. Okay, so now any discussion? Janet first, and then Shari.
So when you say these will be revisited annually, are you saying that if whatever we vote on, that's 1 year?
No, I'm not saying that the goal will necessarily change dramatically, but you're going to change, you're going to grow, you're going to update them, you're going to find out sometimes that some goal was easily accomplished, or there's another goal that needs to be massaged a little bit. Maybe it's not quite as realistic as you thought.
And so I only also wanted to point out that I suggested a shorter mission statement, and I did not get any feedback on that whatsoever. So I don't know if that means that no one liked it, or if, or what. But I did feel like when I went back and read our mission and vision that they were a little bit wordy, and not something that rolled off the tongue. So I would like everyone to consider a briefer version that gets to the essence of it, but maybe doesn't include all of the wordiness that we have included.
Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I did. I sent one out a long time ago, and I can tell you what it was. The mission's suggestion was to shorten it to engage our diverse community, cultivate a unique sense of place, and enhance quality of life.
Seems to still capture.
Yes.
All right. You're going to have to say it slowly so that
Sure.
Valerie can catch it.
Engage our diverse community, cultivate a unique sense of place, and enhance quality of life.
And what quality of life?
Enhance quality of life. In an email that I sent this, the only other thing I wanted to point out was I wanted us to be careful about how often we say sense of place, because I think we've included it in a lot of places, and I don't want it to become meaningless by overusing it. So I didn't specifically notice it in all of the things, but I know that when we were going through it, it popped up a lot of times, which it is important, because I think everyone agreed that that was an important piece of Columbia, and we all wanted to have that, but we also don't want to minimize it by overusing the phrase.
I think.
Okay, and vision. Wait, Janet was still. How about the vision?
I didn't have a suggestion for that one.
All right, Shari was next.
I just want to say I like the version that you have. I like the fact that there are strong verbs there. I like it's almost like 3 bullet points. It gets across, I think, without having that wordy sentence, what we have been bringing up in all of our various meetings. So thank you for bringing that up again, and I'd like to support that.
Thank you.
The issue I was going to bring up was under resource stewardship, and that was on page 1 going into page 2. Under objective 4, it says formalize a process to identify assets that should be shut down based on operating budget, capital improvement needs, and impact on the community. And then there's a date. But under objective 6, it says determine quality of revenue needed to support programs and services. I think we would need to take a look at revenue first before determining whether anything needs to be shut down, or what might need to be shut down, or what the process, or even saying shut down. We might want to modify, we might want to revise, we might want to consolidate, we might want to, there are lots of different things that we could do other than shut down. So that was objective 4. I would like to drop, and I would like to move up in that list if we're going to create a system, create a scorecard, create a way of determining quality of revenue, or however you want to put that, I think fits in with those other objectives. I think objective 4 doesn't fit with that group.
Okay, so I'm a little unclear. Your proposal is to drop objective 4 totally?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was it. I just wasn't sure whether you were dropping the entire objective or dropping the date.
No, drop.
No, I think
Okay.
the objective, I think 6 would lead to
Okay.
that analysis, but I think
Okay.
6 has to be there,
Okay, so you want
further up in the list.
Andy, I have a process question. It feels to me like we may run the risk of sort of going scattershot. Somebody who has an idea over here, somebody has an idea over here. I would appreciate and like to propose that we sort of stick with one topic and work it and then move on to the next, because we haven't heard from everybody about Janet's suggestions around the mission and so on.
So, all right, let's do the mission first. We'll do mission. So, show of hands, who is in favor of the revised mission statement as presented by Janet?
Could I ask before we do that, Janet, could you say what it is that you, besides some words, was there anything you feel like you took out of the mission?
I felt like I took out stuff that was obvious, like we provide programs, amenities, and facilities. I think if anyone knows anything about CA, they know that we provide those things. I was focusing more on why we're providing them and what we hope to get from them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions on the mission? All right, so how many, show of hands for those in favor of the mission? Alan?
Aye.
Okay. Vision? Show of hands in favor of the vision? I haven't heard any.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, strategic priority identity. Any questions, discussion? No? So show of hands if that sounds okay.
I'd like to get in the queue.
Yeah, Alan, you're it.
You're going down. No, never mind. Never mind. I thought I was. I'll be coming later.
Okay. Show of hands for identity.
Last time I recommended a word change from recognition to visibility, CA's visibility, and it's going to keep recognition because to me it felt very self-serving, but the word remained the same, so are we keeping the same?
Where was that?
The first one, the significant the very first goal under the identity, which significantly improves CA's recognition as a valued partner. So I'm saying recognition is very self-serving. I rather want to see, let's increase our visibility. So it's like more we want to do to. So anyway.
I agree.
Any other comments on that? What's the board think? Visibility sound?
Yeah, I like visibility.
All right. Any other changes? If not, a show of hands.
Aye.
With visibility.
Yes, with visibility.
With visibility.
With visibility. All right. That's good. All right, now we're down to resource stewardship, and the suggestion was we drop objective 4.
I'd like to get in the queue.
Yes. Alan, you're it.
I agree with the sentiment. I don't think that the goal or the objective should say with an eye toward what we're going to shut down. It should say something about process to identify and to identify what, I don't know what the right words would be, what should be done, how we should manage, what are the proper next steps, because it may be the next steps aren't to shut it down. I'm not sure I want it only hinged on, and I'm not sure you were saying this, Shari, but I don't want it just hinged on income. That's a piece of it. So I don't mind them being connected, but I do want to take out those words about what should be shut down. Those are fighting words for a lot of people and unnecessary.
I think,
Sure.
just to clarify here, I think that I understand the idea to identify what to do with assets. But the qualifiers here, operating budget, capital improvement, needs, all of that, these are all financial things.
Right.
So objective 6 that talks about revenue is, I think, the crux of that. If you want to say needed to support programs, services, and CA physical assets, if you want to put all of those things under 6, so that they are all linked to revenue, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, which is why I eliminated 4, I guess, because that didn't feel right to me. But
Just a second. Renee's next, then Raffia, then Lynn, and then Ginny.
Yeah, my only comment is I'm in favor of eliminating number 4 for a variety of reasons. And I think at some level, we are going to be looking at those assets, and we create the system to assess physical condition of assets under objective number 1. I do want to be sure that we're very careful in looking at those assets, because not everything is based on money in Columbia.
I agree.
Raffia.
Actually, I somewhat agree with the everybody's comments, but I will go even further. It's not just when we are talking about the resources stewardship, it's not what assets we want to shut down. What asset we should acquire is the other side of it. If I remember, for years and years, my dream was that CA should own its own headquarters. That would have been a wonderful resource to have, and we're still paying thousands of dollars in rent. We would have clearly owned 10 years ago with a 15 years bond, and there was many things we looked into it. And I think that, if we are just looking into one side of the asset, this is very narrow to me, that we are only looking to what we have and what should we do with it. What about what we should have had? I mean, we're talking about resource. That's a wonderful resource that we wanted to, just like why do we all want to own our own house? Because of the resource management we are trying to do. And CA should have really, own its own home too. So anyway, my comment is that, just the one-sided about shutting down is something I'm not.
Lynn.
Well, maybe we could say something about assets should be modified, consolidated, or acquired. And it would sort of give you all kinds of options in looking at assets. And it isn't just tied to money in this case. It's
Anything else? Ginny.
I just want to get in the queue again, please.
Add you to the list down. Ginny?
Yeah, Lynn actually I'm on the same wavelength with Lynn. My concern in eliminating this, maybe rewording it, I think is better, is there may be times, maybe not this year, but maybe in the future, based on what's happening in Howard County, the competition, et cetera, that it may be necessary to revise or some of our products. And, combine some, eliminate some product that we have that's just doesn't make sense anymore because, but create a new one. And we've got to be flexible. Any organization, I think, has to be flexible if it wants to continue to exist and meet the needs of our residents. So I'm afraid if we just cut this out altogether, is there anything else in here that would allow us to do that analysis and make a determination? And it's not always just based on revenue available. It's based on what do we need to do to provide for what our residents think are needed. And if we eliminate this, have we eliminated that option for us? And then we're not a flexible organization. So,
Alan.
Yeah, I guess I just want to make clear what I mean as I hear people talk about it's not just about income. I mean, that this whole area, resource stewardship, is about both sides of the equation. It's about the physical assets and it's about our strategic goals and mission. So all of those parts need to play in to whatever decisions we make about any of our assets. So it's not just about based on operating budget, capital improvements, and impact on the community is absolutely a huge part of it. So I want to make sure we keep that in. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, Ginny asked a good question. Is there anything to preclude our doing any kind of identifying assets as circumstances change? And I think my reply would be, from my experience here, there's nothing that precludes it. This is looking towards the future. We're going to be looking at assets. We're going to be looking at the community impact of assets. We're going to be looking at revenue. We're going to be looking at all of these things. So at any time, a proposal could come forward to make an adaptation or a modification, as has happened in the past here. And it opens up for discussion. And then usually a white paper is done or something of that kind, a threat analysis, what is the benefits versus the cost. So that has come up before. I don't think this would preclude. I think we could drop this and still certainly be able to take those kinds of actions in the future.
Janet.
So the only part about, I'm not opposed to dropping it for all of those reasons that you've stated. The part that I like about it, though, is just the formalizing the process. And so based on the conversation, we could formalize the process to evaluate and, I don't evaluate existing and potential assets or something like that, but I think the piece of that I hone in on is just the formalizing of the process, because I think the idea was we sort of do this on an ad hoc basis a lot of times, and if we had a process for continually looking at what we have and potentially what we might need or want, there might be a place for that. And I'm not sure exactly how to word that, but that's the piece of that I'd be afraid to lose. The part about shutting down things, I have no problem getting rid of.
Do we?
Nope. Sorry, Renee.
I guess my comment is, when I read these, is that Objective 1 gives us the ability to create a system to look at the physical assets, and Objective 2 gives us the ability to consider the community impact separately. So I think actually number 4 is a little bit redundant as far as processes.
okay. Look at it that way.
Okay. Susan.
I think so Objective 1 is to create a system to assess, and Objective 2 create a system to evaluate. But then, so you have these assessed. We've assessed the physical condition, so here it is, and we have evaluated community impact. Now what? Number 4, I think, was the now what? What's the process then? Exactly.
Yeah.
But 4 only deals with the existing assets.
It does.
It does not deal with our resources stewardship. So resource of the stewardship is much broader.
And I like your addition to that ability.
So what if you took number 4, we wiped out number 4, and instead under Objective 3 added the action step C, which basically said identify a process to evaluate assets which should be acquired, modified, or removed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
And it fits in under, because you're looking,
Yeah,
you're going
I
to create a
think that's it.
scorecard, you're going to,
Mm-hmm. I think you got it.
Yeah.
All right. Did you write it down? Did you?
Sorry.
All right, so under action step, rather than process, are we really talking about a plan? We sort of move around. I mean, are we, if we're going to set something that is measurable, that is something that we can determine whether or not it's happened, sometimes that's hard to do with a process, but it can be done with a plan. So this kind of task and action, the task would be to create, in effect, a master plan. Then we would know whether or not that had been accomplished. So I guess my point is, can you say plan rather than process?
Yeah, so what if you just said, develop a plan to identify assets that should be acquired, modified, or removed? I changed the plan.
Okay, you know I don't like the removed part. Because
Well, I
that's
mean,
saying,
I thought it was a little better
the
than-
very same thing that's in
But
here.
it's an option.
Modified, revised, consolidated.
Consolidated. I like that
I-
one.
Susan had her hand up.
So did Griff.
Susan had
You first.
I just, I think that a plan would be next. We need a process before we could develop a plan. I think that would be in the next phase.
Okay, I tell you what, we have to wrap this up. Griff.
The group that worked on this, the reason for the process has to do with transparency. If you can count on a process, everybody knows what's going to happen and about what the qualifications are, and so if you look back on some of the other information that we got, transparency was a big thing. So the process helps you get that, and that was the big thing.
All right, so point of information, do you mean process as a multi-year process?
It's an ongoing application.
Okay, so that is different from a plan.
All right, we got to come to some resolution because I want to get this through.
You want to read that again with the changes that they've been
Okay, so what I have is we seem to have a consensus on dropping objective 4 and adding an action step C, which focuses on developing a process/plan to identify assets that should be acquired, modified, or consolidated. Period.
Second.
Wait, did you say process/plan?
Yeah, no, so trying to argue which does the board want? What?
Process.
That's why I put in the word process/plan. Which one? Which
No,
one?
'cause it
I
says
think
the same
everybody else
thing.
agrees with the other words. It's just a question of whether we choose process or we choose plan. And I just would like to take a board vote on that. What do you want?
Means the same thing.
No, it doesn't.
I like the idea of process in that's where we got criticized on a certain issue this past year, and that we didn't have a process. We certainly were presented with a plan, but we didn't really agree to a process for, I won't mention what topic. Yeah, okay. And we really feel it's important to have a process that involves the appropriate people to do X.
Okay, I'm simply going to.
I was just going to say,
Go
I
ahead.
look at process as the evaluation and application of the decision-making tool to create what comes next, which would be the plan. That's how I look at it.
Okay.
All right.
I can go with that.
Okay, so we'll go with process. So with that change, we drop objective 4 and we're adding the develop a process to identify assets that should be acquired, modified, or consolidated. All those who like that? Alan?
Aye.
Okay, good. Got that. All right. Environmental sustainability. Any questions, comments? All right, I'd like to call on that. All those in favor of that? Alan?
Aye.
Okay. Down to leadership. Questions? All right. All those who like the leadership development?
Well,
Okay.
I do have one question.
Okay.
As we were working on these, I think you can certainly see that leadership development and advocacy did not get as much attention as some of these other areas.
I gave advocacy a lot of attention.
Not sure all of it got in here. So I think leadership development, if we make a commitment to flesh this out at some point, I think this is a very good start. To flesh this out in terms of objectives and in terms of tasks. So again, we get to that SMART goal. What are we going to do? I think it would be inadequate to only do one thing as far as outreach is concerned. We can certainly brainstorm lots of wonderful things that CA can do. So with that caveat, I'm fine using this as the bare bones as long as we make a commitment to flesh this out and put some meat on these bones.
Sure. Yeah. Lynn?
Yeah, I found this, I was really confused when I read this because it didn't seem to really mean anything. When we talked about leadership, we talked about working with like the village boards, with other organizations such as like Leadership Howard County, going to other groups to enrich the leadership possibilities within CA. I mean, the leaders have to come from somewhere. And there's no mention of that at all. One new outreach initiative a year, to me, is a meaningless statement. I can't imagine, hand out a flyer? I mean, what are we doing? It seems very weak.
Any other comments?
Okay. I'd like to get in the queue.
Alan?
Yeah, I do. I know it may be too late for this, but for me, objective 2 is the strategic priority, or at least should be part of the strategic priority. We're going to increase participation among culturally and professionally diverse community, some of those leadership roles, so that the board leadership is reflective of the Columbia, maybe it should be Columbia leadership, is reflective of the Columbia community. And then I agree that there needs to be a whole bunch of objectives and actions and tactics underneath that are clearly not in this one yet.
Rafia?
I'm just observing here. I was just saying, am I the only minority sitting here? And is there any young people sitting, Yeah, you are. Janet is one.
I'm a token middle-aged.
So really, not a lot used to be done, and we need to start early, very early. Yes. From the.
So what might be good under this one, simply kind of in parentheses or in italics, is the additional work will be done on this particular priority.
I like Alan's idea though because I think the goal is,
Columbia.
we would like to see here a better representation of Columbia.
Yes.
And in order to do that, it needs to move up. I think putting it under, and I'm not sure you can put a date on that. Like, it would be lovely if we could do something in 5 years, but that's a lot to accomplish in 5 years. So, I'm not sure that the year, I know we want measurable, but that's kind of arbitrary, I think. But I do agree with Alan that should be part of the actual priority.
And if I could, this is Alan, if I could just say, this is a 5-year strategic plan, and the whole point is to look at what is, to look at what we want, and to figure out where the gaps are, and start meeting those, and that clearly is the gap.
Okay, so I'm a little unclear here what the board wants. Lynn?
I would say shelve this. Let's table this. I think it needs work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
Okay.
To do it tonight. I don't think we have the time to do it tonight.
Okay.
This to me was where we were really going to be involving the villages and other parts of the community. And if we just leave that out,
Committees,
right.
and things, yeah.
So what if, though, we keep it as a strategic priority, okay, but underneath we can just say to be determined?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think we still want to keep it as a priority. We just know it needs more work.
Oh, absolutely, no.
But then we can at
Definitely as a
least
priority.
approve it as a priority,
Yeah.
And
okay.
then we'll,
Just the gold part, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
let's just do to be
I agree
determined.
with Amber. The other is embarrassing.
Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, we need it on a calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, advocacy. Any discussion?
I could just, simple thing, it's missing the word goal at the beginning of the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. All right, all those in favor of advocacy?
Aye.
Looks unanimous. All right, so I'm going to take a vote on all those. So we made all those changes. All those in favor of the amended draft strategic plan? Alan?
Aye.
Yes. Done. Unanimous.
In under 35
Thank you,
minutes.
Griff. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Yes.
May I make a motion?
Sure.
That we have a date that we come back to the board with the improved leadership development strategic priority and goals
Well, what's the date the board wants?
by the next meeting, the next board meeting.
To have the objectives, it's not to have the board do it.
The only problem is we got Memorial Day and people are off on vacation. Could we make it, how about by the end of June? The June
The
meeting?
next meeting,
The
not
meeting.
the work
The meeting,
session.
The
right,
meeting.
not the work session.
No,
Is that okay?
If you
I
have
think that's
people that are
manageable.
willing to serve on
So
it and do
let's,
it.
so let's,
That's what it all comes down
so
to.
that's it. So our goal is going to be to try to flesh that one out by the meeting in June.
The meeting is what day?
There's 17.
Fourth Thursday in
fourth
June.
Thursday.
Fourth Thursday.
Are you out of town?
27th.
27.
Yeah,
27
27.
works.
It doesn't work.
It does.
Oh, it does, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. Al?
That was, I was saying,
I'm
if you
getting
have
that.
some people that are willing to volunteer to serve on it, if not, I think you can't be setting a date.
Well, I understand that, and I guess my concern is that if we let it sit as it is, then we may as well take all the caveats out of it and just leave it as it is, because once you get past a certain point, it is the 5-year strategic plan.
We could do what we did last time and go to you and Milton and get another small group who is willing to work on
Right.
this,
Well-
board and staff.
Yeah, just that one thing, I would be willing to work on it
Yeah,
with
so
you.
who's willing from the board? Let me know. Who's willing? Shari
You've
and
got a
Renee.
wedding.
Oh, that's right, I can't do that.
I'm sorry, you got a child
My
getting
daughter
married.
will never talk to me again.
I'll do it, will you do
Lynn,
it?
would you be willing to? I think you have some really good ideas.
I want to, as chair, I want to stay out.
Oh, you want to stay out,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it's,
Maybe Raffia would be interested when she comes.
all right, Lynn,
Yeah,
Ginny,
she would.
how about Lynn, Ginny, Renee?
Okay.
At the Yale House.
Lynn, Ginny, Renee.
Yeah.
And we'll ask Ralphie when he gets a chance. And then ask Milton if he, who he would like to pull on from staff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want it to get too
Yeah.
crazy.
And Susan's captured the date, and she can tell Milton. All right. Move on, draft amendments to the rules for the Risk Management Committee, as I kind of explained in my email. I want to thank Gail, I want to thank Griff, thank you very much.
We arrived.
Yes. So you remember last meeting, we approved 4 members, and then we found out that it says 3, so. Is there a motion then to adopt these new rules?
So moved.
Jenny moved. Is there a second? Lynn seconded. Any discussion?
Is there any reason why that's a bad idea?
What's that?
Is there any reason, was there ever a reason that it was just 3? Was it some sort of ratio? Was there any, are there any implications of changing it? That's,
I don't think so, and as long as we change the quorum to correspond to a larger group, it's okay.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in
I
favor
do.
of the changes?
I do.
It's like unanimous. Thank
wait,
you.
I think, did Alan have a question or is he?
I have a question.
Oh, you have a question? Sorry, Alan. I thought. Alan?
I do. I'm just curious. I don't have a opinion. Is there a reason to say 3 or 4 rather than say 3 or more? So give future boards more flexibility.
I think if you get more than 4, you're almost having the board,
Yeah.
the entire board. You know what
And
I
what's
mean?
the down? And
Suddenly-
I've
suddenly
not been
it
on the
becomes like
committee,
a
so
board meeting.
what would the downside be?
And it's such a quick meeting.
People there.
Well, what's the board think? I mean,
No, I just go with it tonight.
No, leave it as it is.
Move on.
Alan, the consensus down here seems to be
Yeah.
3 or 4.
So there's a consensus, but no answer to my question. That's okay.
Okay.
Are the meetings open?
They're all closed meetings.
The risk management meetings are all closed because
But they're open to all board members.
they're open to all board members. They're just closed meetings. They're not public meetings.
So, are we all notified about them?
Yes,
Okay.
There's a schedule.
there's a schedule. Yeah.
We got the schedule last week, 2 weeks ago.
All right. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the changes?
Aye.
Okay, sounds unanimous. Okay,
See.
we're on to board discussion. And I forgot to do this. Do you mind if we move the May development tracker up first? That way we can send Jessica home instead of having to sit here. And so if there's no objection, we're going to go ahead and do the May development tracker first. I should have noticed that, and I didn't. I apologize. Welcome, Jessica.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very much in favor of that. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right, I have 2 quick slides for you. Just want to give you a few updates. And I can see now. Okay. So, real quick, we have 3 important meetings.
Jessica, are these slides in the packet?
No, they were created about 2 hours
Okay.
ago. So.
Thank you.
You can watch the.
Alan, I believe you can watch them by tuning in.
Got it. Thank you.
Mute your computer.
Yeah, just make sure you mute your computer so there isn't a feedback loop.
Right. So I
Not a
just
problem.
wanted
Thank
to
you.
raise 3 upcoming meetings to the board's attention. These are the ones that I think are of most interest to you and to CEA. One is May 28th, next week. The Lakeview Retail is holding a pre-submission community meeting. As you'll remember, pre-submission community meetings are the first preliminary meeting a developer holds before they submit any documents. So we don't know what they will be necessarily discussing the details. I believe they have been to the Owen Brown Village Board to present something, but they could have changed something since that time. So staff will be in attendance to look at what they're presenting, and we will report back on the results of that meeting. But this is sort of the initial process that will start them starting to submit all of their plans. And then we also have an upcoming planning board meeting on June 5th. The Wild Lake Multi-Use Pathway is going to go to the planning board. We suspect it will be approved. It's not very controversial, so if there's any particular issues the board has questions or concerns about, please raise that to my attention now. And then on July 24th, I'm just going to keep this on your tracker since I know it's a particular concern, is the Hickory Ridge Field Center. They're going forward for the zoning board to review an amendment to the preliminary development plan for that project.
Question about the first one. There's been some discussion on the board that people weren't too happy about that particular one. Is that an appropriate place to take an issue, or is that more of an information providing meeting?
It is a good place to provide community comments back to the developer about any concerns that you have about the project. I am aware that there is some concern that one of the tenants that they are proposing is considered a fast food restaurant. The design plan has always shown a drive-through window, and I believe the developer has always said that it is a fast food restaurant, but it's not necessarily what people think of as traditional McDonald's or Wendy's or something. It's more of a kind of new use fast food where you order on an app and then you drive around and you pick it up. So
I think the issue was with the drive-through period, because then it doesn't
the idea being that generally in those office parks, the food is supporting the people that work in the area or nearby, whereas a drive-through is like come one, come all, and it becomes the giant parking lot with Popeyes, you know, and there's no place to go. So I think the drive-through, it doesn't matter what kind of food it is. I think the drive-through is the issue, the biggest piece of that. And I'm not sure, Andy, as a board, what, you know, if the board is interested in taking a position on that, it seems like that would be a.
I think it goes further than that, because if you look at what Rouse talked about in the very beginning of Columbia, I've been in the archives now. He looked at parkways that were supposed to be landscaped, have trees, some grass. This is putting a strip center in the middle of a parking lot, and it opens the door to all of our parkways becoming lined with strip centers. So this is the beginning of more development along those parkways. And the question is, do we want that type of development along our parkways? Or do we want to stand up now and say, wait a minute, we don't like this, we want adequate buffer before we have that strip center? We want so many feet, yards, whatever, of greenery. We want a multi-use pathway. We want a complete street built here. Or are we just going to allow for retail to be put there and move the parking lot behind the office building and have more runoff?
Ginny.
Jessica, could you please explain what rights the developer has and where HRD fits into that?
All right. Well,
So we deal with the Rouse thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll deal with the development right now. Is the final development plan for this site allows any use that's, I think it's under the B1 or the B2 commercial development, which includes the project as it is currently proposed. So this is very much considered a by right development on that site. So I would not recommend the board oppose this outright as simply it's a retail project that we don't like on this site, because I don't think that's a winning battle. And I think that from any objective measurement, it is permitted for the developer to pursue this. I do think there is value in discussing elements of the project that you don't like. If you don't like the drive-through, let's work on what we don't like about it, what we'd rather see. If you think that the 50-foot required buffer should be larger, that's something we should pursue. If you think that the buffer can stay at 50 feet, but it should have so many trees and bushes that you essentially don't see this impact on the Broken Land Parkway, that's something we can pursue. Anyone who reviews this is going to look at it from a perspective of balancing the economic needs of the developer and their rights for their land use and the desire to have Broken Land Parkway remain a parkway. So those are always going to be value judgments, and you're going to have to balance them, but these are the issues that we should be discussing, and the pre-submission community meeting is an opportunity to raise these issues early to the developer and receive feedback and begin to consider them more thoroughly.
Can I finish up with the second part of the question?
Ginny and
Okay, thank you. The other part is, after this goes through the pre-submission, has it been to the planning board?
No, it hasn't been anywhere.
Anyway,
It won't,
so the
this
next
is the
steps,
very
just so we
first
all
step.
understand, would be the planning board.
No, the next step is after the pre-submission community meeting will be making sure that their already approved environmental concept plan matches their current design. And then they'll have to submit it and they'll undergo technical staff review. And then it will go to the planning board. I will have to double check because there was some discussion about what the planning board actually gets to review for this project, given the FDP, because that is the governing regulatory document that we're looking at for this project. I know for sure that they are looking at the buffer and the landscaping. The other site details has been more of a voluntary discussion between the county and the applicant, but I will confirm what criteria the planning board is evaluating.
Okay. So the last point I was trying to make is the planning board will be the last step. It will not go to the county council, it will not go to the zoning board, it will not go to a hearing officer, correct?
Yes.
Just so we all understand what's happening. So this board could take a position, though, on, and maybe you have some suggestions on buffering or things like that. Maybe you have some, and maybe we have some, but if we're going to do it, we need to do it before it gets to the planning board, or even go to that meeting with the position. Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend
But
it.
only on that, not on whether it's a matter of right or whether it can be retail or not. That's all
Decided.
decided. So we don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing. Okay.
So Jessica, you had said.
Yeah,
I'd like
wanna
to
say
get in the
we-
queue, please.
We had an idea of what was coming because we have been looking at the environmental concept plan, and that tends to be a very conceptual level idea of where they're going to do site planning. And so once we do this pre-submission community meeting, I hope to come back with you, since I know this is a project that you are very interested in, and tell you this. I've reviewed this based on what we've seen, and these are my comments, and these are considerations we should discuss. So potentially the next development tracker discussion will be a little bit more lengthy, and we'll focus on this in particular.
And that's going to occur in the first meeting in June. Okay, next was Nancy, Shari, and Renee.
So that was my concern.
I'd like to get in the queue, please, Andy.
When my timing, or our timing about when we do get our objections or our concerns heard, because I don't want it to be too late. We've had that before, and it doesn't sit well.
Yeah, and I can raise some of the concerns that you and questions you've already asked at the meeting, because that's the first opportunity. And also, I would encourage you to attend the meeting, and anyone in your villages to attend if they are concerned or interested in this project. It is that first initial opportunity for direct discussion between the developer and the community, and the minute meetings from that are part of the record that will eventually be submitted and reviewed by the planning board.
So I assume that means you're going to be there.
Absolutely.
And so on behalf of the board, I'm hoping that we would then have you, if all of us or any of us can't make it, that the buffering is, I think, the major concern. Am I speaking for
Well,
a
I think
majority
also
of the people
landscaping.
here? And
I
the
think
landscaping.
buffering and landscaping.
And then one note is that right now, the preliminary plans that I have seen do show us signage in the buffer area, and so I'm definitely going to look into that as well. So,
thank you.
Shari.
The developer presented a very conceptual plan to our village board. And at that time, we asked, there are 4 pieces to this. So we asked, well, what would the other 3 be? You're talking about one being restaurant, what would the other 3 be? And he didn't really answer that question. So that would be one of the issues I would raise also. Is this all going to be restaurants? Or are there other things? I think we would certainly want to have that information. What else would be going in there? And if that's the case, what does the drive-through, how does the drive-through make sense where those other kinds of uses are concerned? So that's another thing I think would be brought up. The other question I got from a community member is this Newtown? It's very close to the path going to the to Lake Elkhorn.
Right.
Is it Newtown?
yes.
It is Newtown. Okay, so in keeping with what we have developed about advocacy, I think the board would need to look at this both in terms of that parkway and what we might want to suggest in the future be done with Newtown zoning, because anything that goes in now, I think the point is very well made. If it goes in now, then that makes that a possible usage almost everywhere.
That's right.
Very, very important to look at this. So this is a test case. And a very well-known land lawyer that I know from other discussions was in the room looking very casual, wearing jeans, which he doesn't usually do. But there was a reason he was in the room. So the other thing I want to say is they also presented this in terms of how far away it was from other food places. Now, I used to work in a building in that same area. And I said, well, you've got McDonald's right down the road, and then you've got this within 2 miles, and you've got this within a mile. So I think there are some regulations. What I am concerned about is the same thing that we looked at with the gas stations. do we put in something new that ends up competing with something else and knocking them out? And so, in looking at the whole in terms of master planning, that might be something we want to think about. One of the things that Rouse very definitely thought about was what kinds of things go in what kinds of areas. So you don't put food with commercial, and you don't have industrial with residential, and that's in keeping with the Columbia plan. So we need to look at this from a larger perspective also. So I'm concerned about when he talked about need, having worked in that very same area, I didn't see the need. I think it's his need to do something, with his land, and I do understand that, and this is a proposal. But I would want to know what is the situation with, how many fast food restaurants can we have within a 5-mile radius?
So, if we have time, I'd like to respond to that. That's a bit of a subjective question, and I actually, as a professional opinion, disagree with your assertions in several ways. So, the first being that the need for the individual tenants of that office building that the developer is trying to meet is the desire to not drive to go out to lunch, to be able to walk to a lunch facility. And they do have some lunch facilities and restaurant facilities within their buildings, but there's been a desire by his tenants to have more options. So that's a need that he's trying to meet that I don't necessarily disagree with. I'm more neutral on it and understand it. I will say that Rouse's vision and planning from the 60s and 70s of separating uses is something that most communities have been trying to go away from, because what it created was the need to always drive for every trip. And most all current planning zonings and most efforts that are being undertaken in Columbia and most communities is to allow for those shorter trip options. That doesn't mean that it's not going to have economic impacts on surrounding communities. Most of our eastern village centers have been directly affected by Wegmans and other nearby competing markets. Unfortunately, most planning regulations do not pick winners and losers in the private market. What they mostly design is communities to fit as a whole. So I think it's a valid concern to discuss what is this impact going to be on the village centers that are most nearby and the competing retail centers, but not necessarily to say that you then oppose this, because I don't think you will be successful opposing it, but also it does meet a different need than the village centers. So it's a longer discussion. I agree with certain elements of it, but I have to raise those points to you. So.
All right, I do understand that. Thank you for your discussing it in that way. So if you're talking about issues of walkability and things of that kind, or an integrated type of thing, then why do we have a drive-through?
And I think that's absolutely valid, and that's why we should raise the drive-through as an issue.
So when you flag that, that's good. That becomes a contradictory thing. So I understand what you're saying about that, and it's helpful to have your view about this, about where we can start to raise those issues. Thank you.
Renee and then Alan.
My only other comment about this is when I drove past it the other day to look at it. If you're coming from the opposite direction, so you have to make a left to get into it, there is no left-hand turn into that.
Yeah.
So has there been a traffic and safety study done to show with the increased traffic that this makes sense?
I am sure the developer has started their traffic studies, and that will come once they have to, the formal review of that will come once they submit their plans. There are people who turn left there anyway. I will double check. This is my commuter route every day, so I'll double check tomorrow morning that there is a left-hand turn there or not. But also, this same area is serviced by a signalized intersection that has left-hand turn, protected left-hand turns. It's the one that's next up, I think, across from Cradle Rock. So there is a protected turn, and what I typically notice just from anecdotal information is that a lot of people do make the left-hand turn, and then when that fills up by about 3 cars who can't make the turn, they go up to the next turn light. So people self-regulate that, but any kind of intersection impacts will be reviewed as part of the submittal of this project. It's too early in the process because the county and the traffic engineers have nothing to review.
Alan.
Yeah, I guess I want to just weigh in. I'm very mindful, Ginny, that I agree with you. We don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing. And I'm mindful, Jessica, of what the laws are, and not all the laws and all the technicals as you are, but that we may lose. But to me, that's not a reason to raise issues. Because part of what we have is the proverbial bully pulpit. And I think we make a huge mistake not to raise the larger issues that I was hearing Renee and Shari particularly raise around the Columbia plan, around the values, the vision, what Columbia ought to be, which is more than just land use rules and regulations. And so while I think we shouldn't be making claims that are not correct factually, that doesn't mean we can't make statements as a board, as an organization, to say what we believe ought to be happening. Whether we lose in this particular case or not, it keeps us in the game. It keeps us into our advocacy strategic goal, and things take time. I mean, I'm mindful of somebody like Liz Bobo, who was in the legislature for 20 years, and often brought up things that didn't pass the first time, the second time, the fifth time, the eighth time, but then finally did pass because momentum had been finally created and support was created. And if they hadn't been brought up originally, we'd be 8 years behind.
Okay, I'd like to jump in
I'm done.
real quick here, because I think Nancy raised a really good point, because I've been thinking about this. No, I mean, so think of it as, like you said, like this is the test case. What do you want? So I got to admit, I saw the plan they showed the Owen Brown Village Board, because they came to Owen Brown just like they went to Keynes Contrivance. The thing that I think appealed to me was that this building is focused internally to face the other buildings. So in essence, they're creating like a square, so that if you remember, there's no access, no doors, no nothing on the Brooklyn Island Parkway side. Everything is basically internal facing, so it's like you're completing a square. And I think like, well, that's good, because I'm thinking of the one on Snowden River where it's right there, facing. So first off, think like, yeah, inside facing buildings, so the focus of the building should be to service the tenants, which means, so that's a good thing. The second thing is landscaping. Landscaping is very important. Third is the setback, as you said, preserve the 50-foot setback. The fourth thing is no access onto the road. So no, because that's the other thing, driveways, access. Yes, there's a there's a signalized intersection, there's already a cut, no other cuts, and so I think those are the types of things we should kind of say, if you're going to do development on a parkway, you need setbacks, you need landscaping. You can't access the parkway directly. You've got to focus your building. So those are the types of things that I think this might bring out in terms of, yeah, if we're going to do this in the future, you need to kind of meet these type of criteria. And if there's anything else, but that's what I was thinking when I looked at the plan. It's like, all right, how do you kind of mesh this, and how do you preserve the parkway? Because it's like they're building another building. So focus inside. All right, Renee
I've
was
got
next.
something quick. I agree with everything you said. I would just add one thing. We need a multi-use pathway along that property.
Let's talk to the village board on that one.
Okay, we're 3 minutes over. Should we let Jessica continue?
Sorry, I really would like to.
Yeah, and this is just a point of information, because my understanding when he showed us the schematic of this, that the entrance is beyond, there's that light into the other office
Yep.
area. Then as you go down the parkway, there is an entryway with no light.
Right, yes.
And so the question, and we asked about, well, would you put a light in there to regulate? And apparently it can't be done, or he's already been told.
It's
because of
likely
where
not
the
He
one.
other-
already went to the county, and the county
the
turned
other
him down.
lights.
Right.
So, that would be another thing to think about during rush hour, when there is so much traffic on there. Does that create any kind of hazard? I'm thinking cars lining up and people swerving and that kind of thing. So, I mean, that was just another thing that jumped out at me. So your points are very well made. He did seem to be willing to do additional landscaping, although there was no set number, no anything of that. But even build up the berm and make it higher, so that we asked about what the how people would know, and he seemed to suggest that there would be a low sign, but there's nothing in the regulations about that, I don't think, so that would be
There are
another
signage regulations and there are setback regulations. I'll double check what's applicable for the site.
parkways.
It's more tied to the FDP, and there's a separate ordinance that governs signage in Howard County and how you have to do it, and then it's a kind of context-based. Let me double check that, and we'll get back, because I think this is going to be a more in-depth discussion after we have this meeting and we have plans to look at.
Yeah, okay. So if we could hold,
we can hold off on this
because
until
we will
get
talk
more.
about this at the next meeting.
Yeah.
There's going to be the community meeting. I think Jessica's got a lot of information, and I'd like to see if there's anything else she has on her slides.
I'll just be very quick. So just quick feedback. I know that last meeting there was a lot of discussion about the Dorsey Overlook project that went before the design advisory panel. As we suspected, they had a lot of issues on a lot of the same comments and concerns that this board raised, and so they essentially sent the applicant back to the drawing board and then come back with a revised plan. And I have detailed comments on that if you are interested in them. I did follow up on all of the board comments, and I can send a follow-up email so I don't take up your night tonight with those detailed comments I've been following up over the last few days. So.
Yeah, I'd like to see those
I would
detailed
too.
comments.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for the summary from the county of the actual meeting, but you can listen to the entire thing if you want. It's available online. So.
I just have one question. I'm kind of concerned that it had been an affordable project and it's no longer. Do you know why it's no longer?
I think they couldn't make the economics work on it.
I'm sorry.
I don't think they could make the money work on it. I don't think they could make it, the
Well, of course
finances.
not. That's why it's affordable.
Mm.
What
Yeah.
a shame. And they were allowed to just walk away from the affordable part.
All right, I want to thank Jessica
That's
for over
too bad.
time, and thank you, Janet. And 3 weeks, next work session, we'll be back with development tracker. So,
And if you have any questions in the meantime, just email me.
all right. The next item we have is the ad hoc working group. Would someone like to give a little summary or
Yes,
talk
I'll
about
be
it?
happy to.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy.
Ginny, Janet, Sherry, and I met.
By the way,
Lynn-
I have a copy in case anybody wants.
Oh, yeah, you can hand out copies.
Sure, because
And Lynn is also on the group, and we have just begun our process. We all feel very strongly that there are a number of things that need to change to make us work more efficiently and effectively. So, the first one is that we feel that there needs to be a monthly BOC meeting that will then allow us to draft agendas that are more pertinent and relevant to what is currently happening, rather than doing them 3 months in advance, which is almost impossible. And at those meetings, we would appreciate, at the BOC, we would like the BOC draft agenda to be sent out to the board so that in case there are other issues that people want to bring up, that they have that opportunity to do that.
you mean before or after?
Before.
You all get a
After.
copy of the BC.
Well, this would be a draft agenda rather than the agenda. We want it to be a little bit more flexible than it has been. There is little flexibility or next to no flexibility. We want to be a lot more flexible and on our toes rather than having to wait for opportunities to add things. I won't go into all of it. But what we would like included is that the reason for the particular topic, the data that's required, and the staff person that is needed. We believe only the staff members that are needed to contribute to the agenda need to be present. The staff is always welcome, of course, but they don't have to be here unless they're part of, just as Jessica is. Others are always welcome. The agenda should be divided into 3 segments. There should be the board segment, the president section, and the staff section. Each section has a topic or issue that is focusing on board action. Otherwise, if we're not focusing on action, we're just wasting our time. Each topic plan is given a half an hour minimum for discussion so that everybody is given an opportunity to put in their 3 cents worth. If more time is needed, then we can take that on to the next agenda for a second reading.
So, can I ask you?
Go right ahead.
So can you explain a little bit more about like the board section, the president section, staff section? I mean, what I'm thinking is, I mean, I know we have like our current. Where would things go? I mean, what goes under board? What goes under staff? What goes under president?
Okay, well, if I can answer that. I think when we looked at this as a whole, we said there are really 3 interlocking pieces.
Okay.
There's the board, there's the president, and the staff.
Yeah.
And so, for example, when the staff is presenting about open space, that can go under the staff section. So it's clear that the staff is presenting something or bringing a proposal or presenting a white paper. And then we know where that's coming from. I think when under the president's section, for example, there are things like, example, the what we just asked about the East Guilford. Okay, so it makes it easier for the board to track these things. If we know if the president is going to be getting back to us on that, that can go under the president's section. So it's more clear, both to the board and to the community, what particular topics are coming up and where it's coming from.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
So, what I heard, say for staff, is really that's the information type stuff, right? I mean, so we're not looking for a board. So as an example, if we get an update on the web, that would be information. If we capital projects, that's information. So that's the type of stuff you're thinking in terms of identifying is there's not going to be any board action out of it per se. It's being presented to the board for their information purposes, right? Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Well, there may be, if there's a proposal, there may be a request for board action. Doesn't mean that there won't be board action. It's just that we know that that section is that it's primarily, it's being presented, there's going to be a discussion, and then something is going to come from that. But it's clear, for example, if it's open space or if it's programs or what section where in CA it's coming from, and it allows the staff to to have a real role, to have a how can I put that? Instead of everything sort of being lumped together and homogenized, it clearly delineates the 3 interlocking pieces that are working together.
So can I ask the committee to perhaps take 2 or 3 of our previous agendas and show us, like the agenda for this meeting, well, what would it look like under the new proposal, so I get a kind of clearer understanding.
Sure, we can take a look at that.
I mean, because like I think, okay,
Andy, could I get in the queue around that?
Where do I put,
Alan would like to get in the
easements,
queue.
that type of. So I think it just would help me if maybe I had something that, oh yeah, okay, here's our current one, here's what the new one will look like.
And I think that would be a good example, so that under board, you have board actions. If you have consent agenda,
Yeah.
those are the actions that the board is taking.
Right.
If we've gone through a second reading or even a third reading on a topic, and a motion is going to be made that the board is going to vote on, that goes under board.
Right, that's what I assumed. I assume anything we're going to vote on automatically goes.
And
under
that
board.
makes it clear to everyone that this is the area where motions are going to be made.
Okay, so if you
Where
could.
policy is going to be made, where strategy is going to be discussed.
So when you talked about a minimum half hour for discussion, okay, is that just things that would be discussed, not votes? I mean, because I'll tell you truthfully,
That's for discussion.
right, I mean, I don't want to set aside a half an hour for every vote.
No.
This is like-
No, and there's more to this. I mean, well,
No, I think the idea on the half hour was limit the discussion to half hour. If it requires more than that, it spills into the next meeting.
right.
Oh, wait a minute,
Which
I
I
didn't
just
read
said.
it, I didn't read it that way.
Well, that's what I just said a few minutes ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it should have said maximum instead of minimum.
Yeah, because
Or is
the
it
way I
different?
read it was, every topic has to have at least. a
Oh,
half
yeah,
hour.
you're
I
right.
could schedule
You
more.
know, the idea
what I
wasn't
thought.
the idea to have a limit of a half an hour
It's a limit
on
of
a
Right,
topic.
and
So
the other part of this, though,
And then it
was
moves
that,
on.
I didn't have a chance to read
a
this.
lot of times when I've been on the BOC, and there are a lot of things that are brought forward, what happens is something, I say, well, let's give it 15 minutes. We never take 15
Right.
minutes. So if we eliminate that 15-minute, well, let's make it 20 minutes to make sure it fits within the time. And then we end up staying here and staying here and staying here. So the idea of a half hour is that if
That's
we're going to address it, it should be something substantial, and the first reading should fit into a half hour. And if we need more, we go on with it.
Can I ask a
Renee?
clarification question? So,
I'd like to get in the queue, please.
Okay, Alan.
Yeah.
join the
actually,
party. So this is for the board meetings.
Right.
Okay, so I guess my comment is, I don't have a problem basically with whatever this is, but I always was of the belief that a lot of stuff that's going on in the board meetings here really belong in the work session. And everything should be hashed out. 90% should be hashed out in the work session. And then we come in here, we're down to a few amendments and moving things on. And that these meetings should be much shorter than they are. And that the work session is where we get into the weeds.
Well, usually in the work, if you don't mind,
Please.
usually in the work session, there is a topic that is the work session topic. And so we don't get into as many of other things, because that might take an hour or 90 minutes or whatever it is. And so whether this is for a meeting or a work session, I think it could go for either one, because a vote will, the first time an issue is brought up, there is no vote on it. It needs to have at least a second reading before there's a vote. So if it's something new and it's discussed for 30 minutes, we cut it off and say, it's new, first of all, we can't vote on it. And second of all, it will then move on to the next agenda, depending on how important that particular topic is. And if it's important enough, it will go on the next agenda, because we're going to become more flexible. And then we potentially could vote on it if there's enough.
Okay, but from hearing Renee, what Renee is saying is we should have our discussions at work sessions. And only at the board, the only thing we really should be doing at the board meetings are votes.
Well, not just, but yeah, you're 90% there, right.
And it's a
That
half-hour
whatever
meeting.
the 2 or 3 or 4 different options are for something, the expensive, the moderate, and the low, cheaper option. Those are the things that we lay out the options on the table after we've figured out what the options are we want to vote on, and then bring them to the board to vote on at the meeting. I think that, and I think we need to do, I'm not opposed to any of this, but I think we need to do a better job preparing for the meetings. That a lot of stuff that I see here is that I don't care who's bringing it up. I'm not picking on staff at all. I'm not picking on board members at all, but it's lack of preparation overall. And so the things we get are just not board ready.
Well, and actually so Nancy kind of skimmed over it, but at the beginning where it's talking about what will be included on the agenda, the reason for that, reason being like taking a board vote. Data required so that we can identify what information do we need to make that decision, and so that there's adequate time before the meeting. And if there's not adequate time, it needs to go on a future. But if there, what data, and then when that goes out, board members can look and say, well, I need that data, but I'd also like to see this data if I'm going to be making
I would
it.
like.
Right,
I would like
and that's what we're suggesting
operations
here.
Committee to be much more active.
Yeah, so to flesh out the agenda so that it identifies exactly
Right.
what the goal of that agenda item even is,
Right.
as well as what
Yeah,
is needed
because
to
I
make
think
the
all
decision.
this is fine, but I think we need a better process for the operating committee.
Okay, Alan and then Ginny.
Okay. Couple of things. I absolutely agree with what Renee was just talking about. I think it may be that what we need to do is think about, and I'm not talking about having 3 meetings, but have 1.5 work sessions a month and a half a meeting. Because I agree that there are times that we get into what we call a meeting, and either we haven't had enough discussion to really get to a vote, so we end up having on and on discussion, or we end up having a presentation either by staff or by somebody from the outside that really ought to be in a work session. So I think I'd love to see us get better about that. Overall, in terms of this whole document, I like almost all of it, and I like where it's going. I like the purpose, and so anything I have to offer is about tweaks, not about not wanting the whole thing to happen. I think I also have questions, as you did, Andy, about this 3-segment piece. While I absolutely agree that you've identified the 3 components, and I'm not sure there are actually 3, maybe there's 2, board and staff, the president being a bridge between the 2 or sitting in both seats. This is the board meeting. This is not a staff meeting. And so anything that happens should be board related. If it's open space, it should be something that we've decided as a board, either through the BOC by putting on the agenda, or as a board that it ought to be on the agenda, whether it came from the staff, other staff, the president, or the board, a board member. So I really would rather see us more combine those 3, not spread them out, spread them apart. And to me, it doesn't promote the kind of continuity that I would like to see. I'm not sure, by the way, that we have a requirement for every vote that we have to have multiple readings. I know we have that for major motions, but I'm not sure that's a requirement for any motion. And I guess one thing that hasn't been spoken to yet is, for me, around resident speak out, the piece that actually for me gets most concerning is when we board members, rather than simply asking questions, we make speeches. And
That's why it's limited
to me,
to 30 seconds.
that's the issue, not the length of an answer, if it's actually an answer to a question, or the length of the question. It's that we go on and on about what our position is, what our views are, rather than simply asking a question of the person and letting them have the floor. I'm done for now.
Ginny, and then Renee.
Yeah.
And then
I'd like to throw an example of Renee's saying we could be more efficient. Lakeview Retail, I know we ran out of time, so I had my hand up, but what I was going to suggest is if we come back and talk about that again, we're going to rehash a lot of what was said tonight, and it took 30 or 40 minutes to say it. I instead would like to see Andy draft a letter based on what he was saying, working with Jessica, get that out to us as to what our position would be, and we all look at that, and then we add, delete, etc. So when we meet again on that, we have a position. Otherwise, we are going to talk it again.
Yes.
And I think we have it. You
So you
now,
want me
the
to
other
do-
part that would not be in this letter is what Alan and Renee and Sherry was saying, because we really need to think about, if we don't like retail and employment centers, and we want that to change, we have to give that some thought in terms of who we direct that to, which is the county executive, the county council, and the zoning board. And we want to change that. We got to move on that. Boards perhaps years ago should have done that and didn't. But this case, we've got to deal with reality. And unfortunately, this is a matter of right in terms of retail. We can just try and make it better. And the letter can be done now, frankly. But the other, we shouldn't lose track of, but let's really think about who we direct that to. And who can really deal with that issue. And it's not the planning board, it's not a hearing officer.
Can I go on with this? Because we
Yes,
still
please,
have
'cause
a
you're
bunch
off
more.
topic.
Well, I was trying to give an example of how
In
it could
each,
function
in
better.
each agenda, we would like to have new business.
get it in.
It's a
I see that.
topic that a
Agree, we
board
could get
member
moving
might
on it, but I
rise.
guess not.
Ginny.
Oops, sorry.
And they will not discuss it, but they will simply say, I would like to talk about memberships. Put that on the next agenda unless, and we could take an up or down straw poll. How many people want to talk about this topic? If we don't have sufficient number of people, then it doesn't go on the agenda. It means that agendas are going to be a lot more flexible. Resident speak out, you've all seen this, it's 3 minutes per person, but only 30 seconds for a board member to ask a question. In other words, while you're listening to the 3-minute speech by the individual, write your question down, get it out in 30 seconds, and then 1-minute response is all that the resident will be allowed. Because we often pull that out, and we could spend 10 minutes easily with one person, and we got to get better at this.
try
We just
30.
have to get, well, we have to get control over the timing. We also would like to set up an easel with helpful instructions that we would like to create for residents as to, number one, what kind of action they are asking for when they come to speak at Resident Speak Out, how they would like to, how to send via website to the whole, how we can send this information, I guess Laura's gone, on the website for people to be able to come up and say, or to find easily, hopefully, how to come in and provide Resident Speak Out. Residents need to learn the most efficient way to get their points across to the board. This will help them, and it will help the board. We're happy to work with Laura to help frame this. And the meetings for everyone attending the meeting to be put in the CA Monthly. CA Monthly would be helpful as well. Many people get that and read it, and other places to get out the word. We also would like the CFO to be present at all the board meetings and the parliamentarian. And the committee is asking to reinstate what had been used years ago, the board book, with all CA board policies and procedures to be included for every board member at the beginning of each fiscal year. We would like one for each board member this year, but I understand it's going to take a little time to put it together at staff's earliest convenience. We don't want you to have to do it in the next week or two. We know it's going to take time, but we would like to have this. Staff does not have to attend each meeting except those where they are presenting. The suggestion is staff sit with residents, but move to a seat with board members with microphones available when they are presenting. And that was just a thought that came up, that people would like to feel that the staff is sitting with them when we have a number of residents in the audience, that I guess they don't want to feel a distance from the staff members, but rather help make this more of a community event when residents do attend the meetings. And there will be more because we're meeting again Friday, tomorrow.
So, so I have a question. I know what the board book is. I remember years ago, except I never got one. Since I've been on, I knew what they would look like. And in this day and age, what if we just had the board book online? Sure. I mean,
that would be adequate.
I just, part of me says I don't really want to print 10 copies of.
Okay, so
It's
can I respond to
available.
that?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I want a book.
Okay, so that's what was
Okay.
supposed to have happened. And so what did happen, and I don't know why, various parts of it that had been online suddenly weren't there anymore. After our meeting, when we had that meeting with the consultant,
Yep.
and Dick and I
Remember?
went back to
Yep.
take a
Right.
look at that.
Yep.
And so there are policies and procedures that are addressed towards residents. You know, this is what you can do in open space and what you can't do. This is how you can fish in the lakes, but, you know, other things you can't do. And then there are various pieces that are scattered in four or five other areas. Okay, that doesn't help the board know what the board's policies and procedures are. And this goes back years. So Alan just brought this up about the second reading rule. The board passed a policy. What does that policy say? You can't find it. You cannot find it on our website. So, although I agree with you as an environmentalist that, you know, I hate the thought of all the paper. However, this is just like a handbook. It's like it is a document that the board members need to be able to refer to. And what we were going to do is we were going to take a look at all of this stuff, categorize it, see if there are any policies and procedures that were contradictory, and help the board weed through this to get at some sort of manual, just like we have a manual of guidelines at the village board level. I don't know if all the villages have that, but if somebody comes in and asks for it, we give the manual.
Oh, we just give them the website.
Oh, no, we give them the
Okay,
manual.
we give them the manual.
We give them manual.
Yeah, we give them the website.
3-inch, no problem.
Okay, so I think that, you know, the issue that arose here and the weakness of putting it on the web is that there's no way of knowing whether there will be consistency or what will be disappeared.
So let me just clarify a little bit, because when I was talking about being online, it wasn't on the web. So I was talking about Google Docs, a section in Google Docs, because Google Docs doesn't change. That's the problem. The web changes over time. But once you set up a section in Google Docs, and you put in all the, whatever the policies or everything, then it's all in one place, one central place. And everybody accesses it via Google.
Why can't we do that, but if a member of the board would like a print copy, we
They
can
can get a
request
print
it.
copy.
And we could
That's good.
hand it in at the end of our term, when we're finished.
That's what we do in the village.
We hand it in, and it could be passed on to whomever if anyone wants one.
Yeah, we
So
have to
that they
hand
don't
ours
have to
in.
keep creating these.
That's a new one,
books.
yeah.
We have to turn ours out. I think Sherry had a question or a comment.
There is a document called Board Governing Documents. It is about 30 pages long. It contains all of the board's policies and procedures, and it is a document that was worked on at length by the board and approved by the board, and it is on the website. And it's got all the stuff in there about second readings and, you know, difference between work sessions and meetings. It exists and it's already there. Now, perhaps there's a problem with people finding it, which I could understand, but that's one of the things that our new website is supposed to accomplish, is that it will become much easier to search for and locate things. But this kind of manual is already exists and it's already on the website.
So could I make a request that?
Could I get in the queue, please?
We put that on since we have it already and we have it in PDF format. So Can we put that on Google Docs so that everybody can access it and knows where to find it instead of trying to find it on the web because sometimes it doesn't work? That, I think that would be very good. And if you send the link out, then every board member can at least see where it is and know where it is. Make sense? Because I mean, that would be good, I think.
Could I get in the queue, please?
Alan, what's
Yes. Yep, you got it. Wait, Nancy, is there anything else you wanted to add? Or Sherry, because I know you were.
Is there anything else did I leave anything?
Working group?
I have been asked to ask that the civility principles no longer be spoken out loud. We just can be reminded and remember civility principles and leave it at that.
Please, please, please.
It's like being in a kindergarten.
I thought we
Okay.
had killed that a long time
People
ago.
don't
Sure.
like that.
It's almost an excuse for behaving bad.
So some of the stuff, what we're gonna have to do is go back.
Could I get in the queue, please?
Sure, and see if it's in our policies, if we have to change. Because it may be that I'm required to read the civility principles. I don't know. I'd have to go back and check. But in which case, I would very, very happy to change that so I don't have to keep, you know, but, yeah, and that's another thing, so I gotta go back and look at the policies. Alan, you're on.
Yeah, I think on the civility principles, we used to have like a poster in the boardroom. We could go back to something like that so they'd be visible to everybody and don't have to be read each time. I recall the document that Sherry is talking about, and my understanding of that document, my recollection, is that it covered a certain number of the policies we had, but didn't include everything. So, as an example, if I recall correctly, we have a policy that we've never voted out that says we cannot use our email for confidential purposes. But that's not, that policy, while it was never voted out, does not, I don't believe it shows up in that document. So I think there are a lot of, and there may be policies that, as Shari was pointing out, that we don't need anymore or they're duplicated, but we haven't, they're still officially on the books. So for me, it's a both and. And I like the online part. I'm not sure about handing it in at the end because presumably between the beginning of a fiscal year and the end of a fiscal year, it'll change because we're modifying things or adding policies or getting rid of them. So it's not like a bound book that gets passed on to the next person. I'm done.
All right, are we out of time here?
We have 45 seconds.
45 seconds. Okay, so what I would ask is, I know the working group's going to continue. So you've heard a couple of things. Can you kind of give us an idea of what you would like the new agenda format to look like, so we can kind of make sure we have
like a draft. You can
right
take the
a
current
draft, so
one
we
and
can
read
kind of
that.
see.
That would make it
Do
easier.
you want to, since that was your baby, do you want to
And-
check with, you mean with the staff and the president and the board?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tomorrow.
I mean, so take like a work session agenda and take like the meeting agenda and like, so here's the meeting agenda as it is now. How would you like it to look under the new,
You want a mock-up?
a mock-up?
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly.
Because I gotta admit, I gotta know. So I'll give you an example.
Okay, you're out of time.
Give you an example, development tracker.
That was your baby.
Where do you put development
But
tracker?
I was just.
We'll
gonna say
take the
about-
agenda.
We know what
Okay,
to
Let
do.
us
good.
let us provide an example and then
Yeah, we'll work
if-
on it.
Right,
Oh, for live Western Onions, we will handle it right now.
all right. Thank you very much, appreciate the working group. You got more things to work on?
Yes, we do.
Okay, tracking forms.
Here's my question though.
Oh, yep, sure.
How do we go about implementing? So, I mean, the agenda, okay, that one clearly needs to be worked out. But
Right, the
monthly
agenda has to be
BOC and resident speak out are pretty clear cut.
We could do that. If there's a consensus among the board, we could do that because that's not in our policies. And that's what I'm gonna ask.
Yeah.
Is this something the board wants to do? Resident speak out, putting the time limits on.
So moved.
Yes.
All right, I'll just do a show of hands. All right. Alan, do you have any?
Nay.
Okay. Well, the consensus of the board, the majority of the board was they wanted to do this, so we can do this.
So it'd be effective.
I figured. I didn't think I was going to hold anything up.
All right. What I will ask is to make sure if there's anything that has to change in our policy.
There, so the
Procedures.
one piece of that is, I think, very important. I mean, the time limits are one thing. They have to be communicated anywhere when you mention residents speak out. But the second piece of that is helping residents focus
Yes.
their testimony
Sure.
so that they get more out of it and they get what they want out of it.
Right,
and
now
that
that'll
was,
have to be worked on.
so yeah, that wording will have to come together. But that was why we wanted to include, basically. Suggestions for them, like are you asking for something? Are you just wanting to tell us something, or would you like testimony? Being very specific about what they want and what they could potentially be asking us for, so that they walk away feeling like they got their message across and they asked for what they needed.
And if that's on the website, then when we know somebody's coming, we say, hey, look at this on the website. You'll have a good idea what the board's looking for. The two people tonight, the two groups, excellent. They gave us something that we can use.
But then that was also like this poster over here, to have residents speak out guidelines provided so that if someone comes in, they can see right away that if they haven't thought about it yet, they can.
And a copy you were saying next to when they sign in. There's a copy there. So it should improve, it really should be great helping them.
Yeah, no, that has to be worked on.
Whether that can all be done by the next
And
board meeting.
we'll definitely have to get with Milton, because some of this involves staff, and I have to get, Milton's approval to kind of task staff.
Could we also deal with the issue of the civility if we allow you guys to work, like Sherry and you, to find out if it's in policy, and if it's not,
we will
just
go back.
I'll check it.
What I'm thinking of right now is let's just put the civility principles on the screen, have them there when people come in, and then we can just kill them.
That's fine.
That way,
Well,
that way they're
that
there.
doesn't
And
cost
if we ever
anything.
change anything, right?
Yeah,
it's all
or
there.
right up there, a copy of them.
Yeah,
too.
but if you put them on the screen, it's hard to miss.
Well, yes, but because we once had an incident and had some people screaming at us at a meeting,
So,
if you recall.
civilian.
Which board member?
Civility principles.
Okay.
Okay, monthly BOC.
Can I,
Talk about
can
that.
I raise a
Go on.
concern about that?
Yes, the monthly, go ahead.
Okay. Could we sort of table that just a little bit to
Which?
the monthly BOC? My concern is what's the, Nancy and I talked about this a little bit, and I was hoping we could talk about more tomorrow, but what is the objective here? And I think the objective is that everybody on the board has a better understanding of what is on the agenda, not just the next one, but the next couple that the BOC approves. And I've been on the BOC, and I don't remember what we approve sometimes. We don't get those agendas right away, and we should. So that would improve the process. But to meet monthly, we're now meeting quarterly? Okay, I thought we were having trouble getting people that have signed up to actually attend the quarterly meetings. So if we're going to meet monthly, one, we are asking staff to come out 12 times a year, extra meetings. So that's like going from 4 meetings a year to 12. We are asking our colleagues to do that as well. And frankly, I'm not sure that we couldn't achieve what we want by actually seeing the agendas right away and not, I don't think they're going to come out. I really don't. They'll sign up and they are not going to show.
What do you
Okay.
mean, what's not gonna
A
show?
monthly, I think monthly is
Okay.
overkill. Every other month is a compromise
No,
from quarterly.
You know what? I like what you ladies have done. I gotta tell. I was like, okay, what are you gonna come up with? But I gotta tell you, I think that we need to push back to the operating committee a lot of stuff that's even in the work session, and that if we can use that operating committee, if we can find some strong people in there to work in that operating committee, and maybe we don't keep rotating quite as much as whatever the scenario was prior, that could be a real force to help this board become more organized, more efficient, and to help deal with what the true issues are in Columbia. I think that if we have a priority, I think it's that operating committee right there.
So what I suggest is let's just carry this discussion on to the operating committee, which is meeting June 3rd, which is,
A week and a half.
I'd have to go figure out who, but everybody in the board is welcome
I'm on it.
to that.
It's
Yeah.
June 3rd?
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
can't
June 3rd.
remember
Well,
who's, like, I don't know who the
But
second
so let's
person
carry
is.
this conversation over because we're talking about the BOC. So let's do it at the BOC meeting.
Well, except that I think
Because we're out of
time, and I understand that, and I appreciate that. We don't have to solve this issue tonight, but I think this really goes to the heart of what we're trying to do here. If we're going to reorganize and get things out of a committee of the whole, which is really how we operate, this is an opportunity to bring it out of the committee, what I call the committee of the whole, into a smaller group. And it may be that that group says, you know what, this isn't quite ready for the board. We need to find 2 or 3 or 4 people to take a second look at Lakeview or whatever that retail shop is before we bring it to the board. And I just think that and I'm okay with bringing it to BOC, but I think it needs to go to the work session too. And if our staff has to meet 12 times a year, it has to meet 12 times a year. I mean, I just don't see where that is the issue.
Yeah. We'll take it. I mean, we'll make sure this is on the BOC agenda for discussion. Sorry.
I just wanted to say, I think we are trying to be supportive of the staff. I think one of the things we've seen is that a lot of the staff comes out, they have to sit through these very, very
Yes.
long meetings. Hi. Hi, Dan. And we know you've got better stuff to do, and you work hard during the week. So we're trying to figure out some way, how can we, pare this down to who's absolutely essential to the board's actions and activities, and when there's stuff to present, then it's really important. If we're talking about memberships, and you got to be here, but if we're not talking about that, then why be there? So I understand what you're saying, Ginny, about who has to be there for the BOC, but we used to have BOC meetings once a month, and quite frankly, we really didn't have problems with it.
Right.
We didn't have problems with people showing up. The other thing to think about is, I don't know about you, but on our village board, we always used to rotate the RAC, who does the RAC, who is representing the board on the RAC. And we established a schedule at the beginning of the year, and you had your date, and that's what you were doing.
Well,
and so it might be easy for us to organize ourselves that way, as long as we are sure that we have 2 people.
Right.
So in case one person can't show up, we've got a backup. I think that might be workable.
And we could always we could always
Like to
have
get in
an
the queue, please.
alternate person if one of the other 2 people can't go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
all right, I think Alan's.
Alan?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I guess, first of all, just to be clear, it's only 11 meetings, so we don't have a meeting in August, so there's no need for a BOC meeting for that month. It might also be possible to combine the November and December, since there's only 1 meeting in each of those months, into one BOC meeting, so it might only be 10. But in terms of the staff, I got to say, my understanding is the staff works for Milton, or the president. And it's not up to us to say who the president wants to have at a meeting, and it's not up to us to decide which staff would come if the president doesn't feel they'd be needed. The president would be the focus, and if the president decides that the president can speak to whatever issue needs to be spoken to, then that's who the president would have. And that we may ask, but we can't command staff members to show up for any meeting.
All right. Thanks, Alan. We'll do the tracking forms. Any questions on the tracking forms? Talking points.
The board awarded Baggy Brown Spirit of Columbia Scholarship Awards to 6 graduating seniors. The board passed a resolution recognizing June 7th, 2019 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. The board approved its strategic plan for FY 2024 with the following changes. Revise the wording of the mission to state, engage our diverse community, cultivate a unique sense of place, and enhance quality of life. Revise the vision to substitute the word visibility for recognition. Add an action step C under resource stewardship. Objective 3, develop a process to identify assets that should be acquired, modified, or consolidated. Delete resource stewardship objective number 4. Additional work will be done on the leadership development priority. The board approved amendments to the rules of the Risk Management Committee as presented. By consensus, the board accepted the ad hoc committee's suggestion regarding time limits on resident speak out.
Sounds good. You did a very good job. Thank you very much. Well, hearing no further objection, we are adjourned. We are adjourned 3 minutes before the schedule, so.